Hi everyone, welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. On this episode, delighted to be talking with author, comics creator Brian Lambert. Brian, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate, just the time and the ability to kind of talk and nerd out and geek out about stuff that we all love.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks out there will know you from the world of Kickstarter with projects like Justice. Any other projects that you'd like to mention there that folks can go and find?
So we are currently, as Wingless Comics and myself, we're going to launch a new project. Pretty soon, we're actually going to launch our next chapter of Justice, which will be number 5. And it's going to be a combo issue with Justice. And if you follow us, his foil, Caliburn. So they're like my Superman and Batman. And it's going to be their first official meeting. And it's a very old school kind of tale. So we're going to launch that in March. But I have a couple friends that are on right now. Wiseacre Comics is on for Noir Ghost. Danny J. Click is on right now for Ace Blade. And 133 Art, Jason Reeves is going to be launching at the end of this month with a One Nation omnibus. So,
Nice.
as always, Kickstarter is just rife with material and just a ton of projects and a ton of really worthy creatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love the fact that there's a venue for people to share that's outside of the kind of the guarded gatekeeping world of comics. And so glad to hear that you're bringing the story together and the story's continuing as well.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in that a lot of creators don't get past an issue 1, and certainly not an issue 2. It's hard. People think that comic creation is just you sit down and you write something, or you sit down and you draw, and it's
Hmm.
and it's done, and it's so much more than that. Just like everything we do. And so it's I'm blessed that I'm able to be able to continue doing what I love. And doing it with people who I love to work with. Again, being on podcasts like this, being able to talk about it and stuff. And so it's like slow and steady wins the race. So it's again, I'm not going to be able to put out a 12 issue execution or song in a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Multi-title crossover in 1 year. But if you just take your time, you're able to tell your stories. And again, you're able to link up with some other great people. And Kickstarter is really great. So regardless of the algorithms on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram or whatever, Kickstarter is always there. And if you're a fan of comics, you're always going to be able to find what you want. They make it easy. I mean, if you're a fan of anything, really, you're going to be able to find what you want on Kickstarter. You just have to look a little bit. So I think that's pretty awesome that that's always available to us. Because again, just a few short years ago, relatively, like that wasn't the case.
Hmm. Hmm. True enough. What is your origin story as a creator? How did you find comics and storytelling?
I've always loved comics, and I think anyone who's currently doing comics felt that way. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And we were. I never say I was an outcast because that's not necessarily true. Like in high school, I played football. I wasn't popular, but I was not unpopular. I wasn't like the kid that was in the dungeon. I was
Yeah.
quote unquote normal, or average at best. But I was always a kid that, regardless of playing football, I always had a comic book in my backpack. Right, like I was goofing off in class, or not like just making jokes, but again, reading comics or drawing something. And I kind of went away from it for a while, and I was studying to get my English degree, and I love prose, and I love Arthurian legend and all this stuff, and I, ran into Tolkien and Michael Crichton and all these great guys that are writing these great novels and stuff. And I dove into that, and actually writing my first novel is really what got me into comics. Well, back into
Mhm.
comics in terms of like the writing and production side, because I grew up in the age of like Image Comics, right? And Image Comics, these guys were like rock stars when they left. When they left Marvel and DC, they were doing signing tours. We had never
Yeah.
seen that. So I grew up in that age of like, oh man, this would be awesome. We could do it. But then that age of being able to do it kind of died pretty quickly because no one. So I got out of it, and again, it wasn't until my kind of later years where I was able, with Kickstarter and with Facebook and with the proliferation of social media. Now it's easier to find an artist. Now it's easier to self-publish. Now it's easier to do these things, and it kind of just brought it all full circle. And having that prose background, I think, helped in that it helped story frame. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we see a lot of time in indies and just in writing in general is that people have these great ideas, but 90% of the idea lives in your head, right? And so you're making these logic leaps because you know what the story is, but it's hard to put that on to a comic page. And it's hard
Mhm.
to put that into prose. It's hard to put that into other things. And so, kind of growing up on one and then learning the other helped me marry the two.
Nice, nice, yeah. I could definitely see the influence of some of those people that were working in the 90s. Definitely see that. Any particular influences, ingredients that you would point to in your work?
I have to say, even though I'm technically not so much of a fan of his contemporary work, The Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller was, you know what I mean? It's like a
Hmm.
seminal work, especially again if you grew up in a certain time frame. Dan Jurgens and Mark Waid's work, and reading their work like on Kingdom Come and Death of Superman.
Hmm.
Those were really big for me as well. Like I said, the Executioner song was probably the first crossover that I collected ever. It's like a 10, 11, 12-year old kid. And so I think like the heyday or quote, of comics, right? Like the Rockstar era, I guess I'll call it, of comics,
Yeah.
was what really like I cut my teeth on. I love Jim Lee's style in terms of art. Michael Turner, like these guys. That's part of the reason. Like when I saw Fabio Smal's work, who was the current artist on Justice, as soon as I saw his work, I was like, I want you to do some stuff. And we immediately, like
Mhm.
the day I saw it, I messaged him, and again, that's 5 years ago now, and we just started working together because his style was so reminiscent of that. And the same with Nestor, who's the colorist. He had these saturated palettes that I loved. You know what I mean? And not everybody was doing them like that at the time. Again, just even 5 years ago, they weren't washed out, but they were just different. And I was like, no, I love this oversaturated '90s feel and look, to kind of bring that like epic scale to things. Again, that Todd McFarlane, kind of thing. And obviously, if anybody's flipped through a page of Justice, you can see the influence of that there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dennis Cowan and the Milestone guys, again, seeing someone who looked like me again in the '90s, having their own comic company was huge. Dwayne McDuffie and all the things he wrote, even down to like Ben 10, just the little things that kind of, sometimes you don't know, but you pick up on, and they're things that you love. I think that's all infused into what I do and how I kind of create or how I try to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Uh, what is something you hope readers take away from your work?
Hmm. From a really greedy sense, I hope they take away like wanting more, right? Like I
Sure,
hope that
sure.
they read it and I hope the page turns make them want another page turn,
Hmm.
right? Like I hope that that's the case, just from a purely like I want people to like my stuff place. There's always a deeper message in art in general. And so there's always themes of, revolution, whether it's of thought, whether it's of body, whether it's of mind. You have all these themes that go through everything. So I want people to kind of just connect with the themes, right? And
Hmm.
for them to be inspired as I've been inspired. I don't know how many times as a kid they used to have these things, and not everybody knows them right now. But you used to get a toy, you get a Transformer toy,
Hmm.
and it came with a booklet, and the booklet had all the other Transformers that either were released or they were gonna release, right? And GI Joe was the same, Masters of the all of them did it. And I used to flip through those books, right? Those
Hmm.
aren't necessarily creative books, and they were just these little small, almost pamphlets, right, that you could just flip through.
Yeah.
But they were so inspirational for me, right? Like to be able to see, like, oh man, I want to get this new toy. I want this, or to kind of because they hadn't come out on the cartoons yet. So like in my mind, I was always creating these stories of like, oh, this is what this guy does or whatever, just in my head. And so I want the same thing. I would love for someone in X amount of years to be like, oh yeah, I read Justice, and it made me write this thing that somebody else loves the whole world over, right? Like it would be great if I'm someone who inspires someone that the world loves. That would be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that chain of inspiration for sure. And uh, you said there's a new issue on the way that you're working on. Do you have a vision for uh, kind of storytelling to come and the journey ahead with the story?
Yeah, yeah. We without spoilers, I can say a couple of things. Like I said, this next issue is Justice and Caliburn's first meeting, and I've already done some promo images, and so the way that it's structured, this is actually Justice issue 5, and then
Hmm.
Caliburn issue 2, because Caliburn ran as a backup issue, like 6 pages in the issues of Justice 1 through 4. So as they collide in issue 5 and issue 2, um, the way the titles are is it's Caliburn 5, but it's a V, right? For
Mm,
5. And sorry, Justice 5, Justice V, and then Caliburn 2. And if you put the two titles together, you get Caliburn versus Justice, right? And
nice.
that's the
Mhm.
point. It's them coming together. And so that's the issue. They go head to head. And it's pretty unique in that I know DC has now done something similar, like the Absolute DC book has done something similar, but you're going to be able to read Justice's story from front to back and then flip the book over and read Caliburn's story from front to back and they meet in the middle. The story meets in the middle.
Nice.
So that's a pretty fun and interesting way to tell that story. And again, after that, then there's going to be the larger kind of mythos that continues. And Justice, because I'm writing, one comic or two comics a month, I mean, a year for this particular title, Justice and Caliburn are kind of, it's more like a Batman Superman title in terms
Hmm.
of them always interacting and being there. While Justice is the main character, um, Caliburn is certainly the co-star. So they're going to interact. We're going to dive more into Caliburn's origins because you know more about Justice right now than you do about Caliburn.
Mm,
And we have one more arc before this, but our next very pivotal arc is going to be called the Sword of Judgment. Um, and you're going to see kind of how and why Caliburn got the powers that he got and other people that he's connected to that are ostensibly connected to Justice as well. So we've got some
nice.
really cool things on the horizon.
Cool, cool. If I'm a listener out there and I want to find out more, if I want to support the work and see some of the art and other such things, where are some places I might go?
We are Wingless Comics across all social media. We are the only Wingless Comics out there, which I'm thankful for because, again, there are a lot of people and a lot of us share similar creativity. So a lot of companies have similar names. So we're the only Wingless Comics on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, on Blue Sky, which we just joined. Same thing for Kickstarter. You can follow us actually on Kickstarter. We're Wingless Comics and Wingless Entertainment. Our website is www.winglessent as an entertainment.com. And that has also all our social media links there. It also has some character descriptions, a couple free digital issues. We've got all of our digital books up there now. And it's also got some stuff about our what's called the Wingless Comics Black Label,
Hmm.
which is we're moving into producing some manga titles, as you can see on the shirt here with Air Force Ones.
Nice.
And that's going to be our black label so that we differentiate it from the gold label, which is our original American style comics.
Cool, cool. Have we missed anything in the talk through that you want to make sure to share before we close out?
Well, I just want to say, again, our new projects, as we do with the black label, um, our mainstay is Air Force Ones, which is about three teenagers who find a giant mecha, legendary mecha, and it helps them start a revolution and bring down a corrupt government. And that's our current title now. We'll be fulfilling the Kickstarter within the next coming months. We just got all of the art back, so we're waiting for all the colors. It's completely lettered, but I didn't want to put out black and white manga, even though that's traditional. Again, I wanted my own little spin on it, so we're just waiting for the pages to come back colored. And we should get that out to the backers. And then as soon as we get it out to the backers, because that's only fair, it'll be for sale on the website. And spinning out of the world of Air Force Ones, we are working on a title called Formula Ones, and it's stylized Formula X Ones, and it is Mad Max meets Speed Racer with an espionage twist. So I think fans again of the genre will love that.
Hmm.
We're going to have a couple other. We're going to have what we're calling the Black Label Anthology manga towards the end of the year, which will have a couple supplemental Ashcan type manga issues. So again, we're expanding how we tell stories and what we do in terms of bringing cultural relevance to a new genre.
Hmm.
And by that, I mean there's a deep cultural exchange that we all go through, right? We're in a melting pot of a world and of a country, etc. And so I think that it's very important to tell stories that you understand and stories that you love while
Hmm.
using a genre that might not be your own, but having hallmarks of your own culture and hallmarks of your own experience, even more importantly. And so we're moving into doing that. can't wait for fans, future fans, people around the world to be able to see. And like I said, I love geeking out about this stuff more than anything, and I can't wait for that to be the case.
Yeah, love it when creators are really people that have had their eye on what they're creating for a while and people that enjoy it first, and that certainly seems to be the case.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that it's important to like a lot of times we get into these mediums to digest them, right? Or we I saw a cool movie and I want to make movies, right? But like you said, we're not studying the craft of making movies, or someone will, oh, comic book movies are hot now, so let me do a comic book so that they'll turn it into a movie. And that's
Hmm.
not necessarily how things happen. It has happened in the past, right? But that's the shot in the dark. What normally happens is that you have someone who's loved that storytelling or that mechanic or someone like Peter Jackson. Peter Jackson didn't just say one day, "Hey, I'm going to make Lord of the Rings because it's going to make a ton of money." He loves Lord of the Rings. He was reading it every year. He grew up in a place that obviously resembles it in New Zealand,
Hmm.
right? Like all these locales, and that's why he was able to make like a gorgeous set of movies because he lived and breathed it. And I think that for me, that's a more satisfying way of doing things. I grew up on Gundam. I grew up on Robotech. I grew up on these things, and I mean, honestly, I just wanted to personify him, right? People, we
Yeah,
act like, oh man, if you put a self-insert character, you shouldn't. Everybody does that. Stephen King is one of the best writers of our time, and there's no way anyone believes that magically all these writers, happen to be in all these extra dimensional situations. It's because it's Stephen King. He's writing himself into these series of events, and when you write from who you are and where you are and what you know, it's just a more authentic product. And it's
hmm,
when it's an authentic product, other people love it because authenticity is what connects with people, right? Like, and we've seen that in Hollywood. When Hollywood is not really authentic, the profits go down. When you're
right.
not making the things that even it's not necessarily the things that people want, it's the thing that you want, right? And you're doing it from a real place. The product is better. And so, like I said, I love being able to kind of push that forward, even in the small ways in the independent space and in the small press publishing space. I love being able to do that and have friends that do that. And again, people like yourself who see that and do that themselves and who, you know what I mean? Just all the different components that go into creating this media, for lack of better words, monster that we're all a part of.
Yeah, yeah. Very well said. Very well said. Well, Brian, it's been great talking with you. Glad to share about your work, and I'll make sure that the Kickstarter link is shared as part of the episode as well. And glad to have you back anytime.
Okay, thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it, man. It's awesome. I will send you some. I'll send you some photos a little bit once I get all the way back settled in. I'll send you some photos later on. And I'm gonna have the pre-launch page up, so I'll send you the link for the pre-launch page. I should have that up by tonight if that's okay.
Perfect. Perfect. Absolutely.
Okay,
All
awesome.
right.
I appreciate you so much, dude. Thank you so much.
Anytime. Anytime. Absolutely. Glad to be in touch and always glad to share about good stories.